Chapter 151, Return a Portion First. You being continued, if the factory's reputation doesn't spread and sales channels aren't opened immediately, it will be difficult to continue the entire project. I plan to see if I can go to the other communes in the neighboring village to collect some eggs or other seasonal fruits to do some other food processing. Firstly, we can expand the production of the factory to provide more employment opportunities for the villagers. For example, many villagers can weave gift boxes for the factory to earn some extra money after work. Secondly, we can buy products from other places. That can also drive the economy of some surrounding areas. Mr. Bai was convinced by the latter sentence. Everything is difficult at the beginning. The government can help you guys with the first batch of production and sales, but if there's a next time, we have to go through the formal procurement process. Yu Bing replied loudly, no problem. Yu Bing thought happily that she would talk about future matters in the future. She would settle this matter first. Mr. Bai wrote a certificate and asked the secretary to sign it. Yu Bing took the approval to the procurement department. It wasn't until both parties signed the procurement agreement and took half of the deposit from the finance department that this matter was settled. Then, Yu Bing went straight to the fertilizer factory and found the factory director. Yu Bing went straight to the point. She first introduced herself and then started chatting casually. Mr. Ma, these are cherries we grew from your fertilizer we bought on credit. They taste very good. Try them. With that, she took out a clean spoon from the lunchbox and handed it to the factory director with a smile. This was the first time the factory director had seen someone speak so self-righteously about credit without any shame at all. His expression froze slightly as he took it and tasted it. He realized that the taste was indeed good. When he saw the packaging, his eyes couldn't help but light up. He said jokingly, Miss Yu, you specifically gave me 2 bottles to try so that I wouldn't collect the debt? Yu Bing replied with a smile, you can say that, but we're very self-aware. We sent it to you without you urging us. When the factory director heard this, he revealed a suspicious expression. Wu Jin had promised to repay the debt within a year. Now that half a year had passed, it would be great if he could repay it in advance. However, on second thought, there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Hence, he asked Yu Bing tentatively, Miss Yu, are you planning to return it soon? Yu Bing said calmly, I do plan to pay off a portion first, but I can only pay it back after we sell the jam. What do you think of our jam? The factory director recalled the taste just now. Even if it was a pertinent evaluation, the taste wasn't inferior to those tasty cherry jams on the market. Most importantly, the packaging was outstanding. To consumers, other than the brand not being famous, there was nothing to nitpick about. When Yu Bing heard this affirmative answer, she revealed her purpose for this trip. As long as you think it's good. Isn't the Dragon Boat Festival coming soon? The fertilizer factory should be preparing to start purchasing staff gifts, right? Our jam is definitely presentable as a gift. Only then did the factory director realize that Yu Bing had this ulterior motive. He said gloomily, so you were planning to sell it to us to earn more money after you finished borrowing from us? Yu Bing said in disagreement, you're wrong. Even if there was no loan, don't you have to buy things for the employees during the holidays? Honestly, is this jam good enough for your factory to buy and distribute as employee benefits or holiday gifts? The factory director had to admit that the taste and packaging were up to par. Hence, he relented and asked, then how much do you plan to sell it for? Yu Bing listed the prices of the 2 products and then said, Mr. Ma, since the fertilizer factory is so rich, you guys have to order the gift box version, right? It's more deluxe. If you give it to the employees and they bring it home from work, everyone will say that the fertilizer factory provides good benefits. The fertilizer factory was indeed profitable. Coupled with Yu Bing's flattery, Mr. Ma decided to buy the gift box version. However, he still wanted to lower the price. The price is too high. You have to lower it for us. The most famous peony brand jam is this price. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 152, Good Start. Yu Bing took out the government's purchase order slip from her bag. Mr. Ma, is Peony's jam packaged like mine? It's just that the brand is more famous now. This is already the lowest price. If the price gets any lower, we'll lose money. The government bought more than you, but I didn't give them any discount. The factory director took a look and confirmed that it was indeed the same price. Hence, he said, since you guys still owe me money, if you lower the price, I'll buy it immediately. Yu Bing chuckled. Mr. Ma, if the price is any lower, we won't be able to earn money. This factory has to operate normally to have a chance to repay your money faster, right? When the factory director heard this, he realized that she made sense. Getting rid of the decimal cents should be fine, right? Yu Bing said readily, of course. We can still afford to lose this small amount. Yu Bing successfully obtained the order from the fertilizer factory and from the pesticide factory for the Dragon Boat Festival. Coincidentally, the farm decided to distribute a batch of daily employee benefits this month, so they ordered the ordinary version. Holding the 4 orders, Yu Bing felt over the moon. After entering the village committee's office, she handed the order and deposit to Mr. Wei. He was overjoyed and kept showering Yu Bing with praise. 2 days later, Feng Kai also returned from City H. In addition to the clothing factory order given by Shengu, he also obtained a mechanical factory order from Chen Min's father. He went to 7 or 8 factories in the city and finally obtained 3 orders. The pre-sales of 20,000 bottles of jam gave the food factory a good start. The eggs from the farm had also been chosen. There were more than 100 eggs that hadn't been fertilized, but Yu Bing didn't plan to sell them. She planned to place them in the shade to preserve them first. She planned to start producing other food after the jam was done. In many places, rural enterprises only started production after receiving orders. Without orders, they would usually be busy with the fields. However, Yu Bing wanted the factory to be operating all year round. Agricultural products were bought at low prices. Only by processing them into food could profits be increased. The factory was in full swing, and the villagers were filled with hope. As Yan Yin looked at the factory that had already begun to operate, he was secretly anxious. Ever since everyone realized that Yu Bing didn't take the so-called betrothal seriously, some families in the village with sons of the right age started to have designs on Yu Bing. It was true that villagers didn't like thin girls, but Yu Bing's ability could make up for these shortcomings. Unable to hold back, Yan Yin wrote another letter to his mother. After Mrs. Yao received the letter, she read that the factory had already begun to produce. When she learned that Yu Bing was still the factory director, she began to waver. Moreover, Yan Yin repeatedly emphasized that he couldn't take it anymore. Mrs. Yao thought about how her husband couldn't find a chance to transfer Yan Yin back, so she made up her mind to let her son marry Yu Bing. If Yan Yin really had to stay there for the rest of his life, since Yu Bing was the factory director, she could arrange for Yan Yin to enter the factory as a manager. At the very least, the two of them would live more comfortably than farmers. Mrs. Yao went to the Yu family's house after dinner. Duan Mei, are you knitting at home? Duan Mei was Mrs. Yu's name. Mrs. Yao's name was Shirlian. When Duan Mei looked up and saw Shirlian standing at the door, she smiled and said, Yu Wu has grown taller, so I might as well knit a new sweater for him. Yu Pan, who was reading a novel at the side, looked up and greeted Shirlian, Hello, Auntie Shir. Shirlian said amiably, So Yu Pan is also at home. Aren't you going out to play with your friends? Yu Pan smiled and replied, I'm not going. I'm accompanying my mother at home. The two of them chatted awkwardly for a while. Even after seeing that Duan Mei didn't say anything else to her after greeting her, Shirlian didn't mind. Shirlian knew that Duan Mei was blaming her for breaking the contract because of Yu Bing's weak body, but Shirlian didn't think that there was anything wrong with her doing this. As a mother, how could she choose a sickly person as her son's wife? If it were Yu Wu, Duan Mei might have been even more ruthless than her. However, there was no choice now. After all, Yu Bing changed so dramatically after going to the countryside. Shirlian could only humble herself. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 153, talking about the betrothal again. She forced a smile and walked into the Yu family's house. Duan Mei, Yu Bing, and Yan Yin have gone to support the rural construction. It's hard to say if they'll be able to return in the future. These two children are already at the age of marriage. Why don't we let them get married in the countryside? When Duan Mei heard this, she looked at Shirlian in disbelief. She knew how much Shirlian despised Yu Bing. This sudden change in attitude made her feel that something was fishy. She sneered and asked, Why did you change your mind again? Shirlian didn't know if Yu Bing had told her family about her becoming a tractor driver and factory director, so she probed, I'm indeed not very satisfied with Yu Bing's weak health, but there's nothing to be picky about. She's smart, and she's not bad-looking. Most importantly, our families know each other well. It's better than letting Yan Yin marry a village girl in the future. You don't want Yu Bing to marry a farmer in the village either, right? When Duan Mei heard this, her knitting hand paused for a moment. Of course, she didn't want Yu Bing to marry a farmer. She had raised Yu Bing for so long, so she hoped that her betrothal money could subsidize Yu Wu. Farmers wouldn't be able to afford that much betrothal money. However, Shirlian was very scheming. Duan Mei didn't believe that Shirlian would want Yu Bing to be her daughter-in-law for this reason. After all, Yan Yin was only 2 years older than Yu Bing. What was the hurry? However, Duan Mei didn't insist. Yu Bing wasn't in good health, so there were not many people who were willing to marry her. Hence, she smiled and said, Let's wait and see. Yu Bing is only 18 years old. There's no hurry. I still want to keep her for 2 years. When Shirlene heard this reply, she knew that the Yu family didn't know anything. Otherwise, if she came knocking on their door now, Duan Mei would put on airs in front of her. At the thought of this, the smile on Shirlene's face became more sincere. It seemed that Yu Bing resented the Yu family since she didn't even tell them about such a big matter. However, this wasn't surprising. Duan Mei and her husband had always ignored Yu Bing and allowed outsiders to bully her. Yu Bing wasn't in good health to begin with, but she did the heaviest work at home. However, Shirlene was happy to see this happen. After all, the more dissatisfied Yu Bing was with the family, the less likely it would be for her to use the Yao family's things to subsidize the Yu family in the future. After marrying Yan Yin, she would be closer to the Yao family. Hence, she continued, Duan Mei, it's not that I want to criticize you, but Yu Bing isn't in good health. Only after she gets married can Yan Yin help her. Otherwise, if Yan Yin helps her, the villagers will gossip. Duan Mei pursed her lips. When did Shirlene become so kind as to care about Yu Bing? No. There was definitely something fishy. However, Duan Mei continued with a fake smile, the child's marriage is a big deal. I have to discuss it with my husband. Shirlene looked understanding. That's understandable. Then go ahead. We'll talk after your family has discussed it. With that, Shirlene didn't stay any longer and left the Yu family. After all, the Yu family didn't know Yu Bing's situation yet. If she was too enthusiastic, it would make Duan Mei overthink things. However, Duan Mei had known her for many years. From the moment Shirlene took the initiative, Duan Mei had already set up a defense. As soon as Shirlene left, Duan Mei gestured for Yu Pan to close the door. After Yu Pan closed the door, she leaned towards her mother and analyzed, there's definitely something wrong. As Duan Mei knitted the sweater, she glanced at Yu Pan. Of course. Why would a shrewd and scheming person like Shirlene do losing business? We can't rush this. Let's figure things out first. Yu Pan nodded in agreement. Soon, Mr. Yu returned home. Duan Mei told him what had happened, but Mr. Yu wasn't that meticulous. He said in disdain, who can Yu Bing marry? She's just a burden. It's already good enough that someone is willing to marry her. Marrying her to Yan Yin is considered choosing a city dweller for her. We'll look good too. We can also shut those people in the courtyard up, lest they keep poking their noses into our business and saying that we're not good to her. Duan Mei rolled her eyes at Mr. Yu. What do you know? Do you think we'll definitely profit from agreeing to Shirlene's offer? Let me tell you, it might be a losing deal. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 154, Losing Business. Mr. Yu scratched his bald head and frowned. Then what do you think we should do? Don't anger Shirlene, or else Yu Bing's marriage might be completely delayed. If Yu Bing can't get married, let's see who you can ask for the betrothal gift from. Yu Pan listened excitedly at the side. Her eyes darted back and forth between her parents as she couldn't help but interrupt, Dad, my mother's judgment must be right. Marrying Yu Bing is equivalent to marrying a medicine jar, and she has to be taken great care of. Auntie Shir is famous in the courtyard for being shrewd. How can she accept such a bad deal? This matter definitely isn't that simple. With her daughter's support, Duan Mei felt that she couldn't agree so casually. Don't worry about this. I'll figure out the real reason for Shirlene's change in attitude first. When Yu Pan heard this, she had an idea. The reason must be Yu Bing. Why don't I write a letter to Yu Bing and ask her? I'll let her tell us what happened in the past few months in detail. We'll analyze it then. Duan Mei also felt that she could only start with Yu Bing, so she agreed to Yu Pan's suggestion. In the eyes of the Yu family, Yu Bing was still the obedient and hardworking old cow from the past, so they subconsciously thought that Yu Bing would be as obedient as ever and cooperate with all their requests. Shirlene waited for a few days without a response from the Yu family, so she decided to take the initiative. She stopped Mr. Yu in the corridor. Mr. Yu, are you off work? Mr. Yu smiled in response. Shirlene pretended to ask nonchalantly, Mr. Yu, how's the discussion about Yu Bing and Yan Yin going? Mr. Yu replied according to his wife's instructions, this is a new era, so marriage is one's personal freedom. We have to consider our child's wishes. Duan Mei wrote to Yu Bing to ask about her thoughts. The corners of Shirlene's smile froze. If Yu Bing was willing, there was no need for her to do this. She would directly let Yan Yin occupy Yu Bing's body. It would be best if she got her pregnant again. At that time, the betrothal money would be saved. She smiled and said, free love sounds nice on the surface, but the most important thing about marriage is that it has to be suitable. After all, after marriage, it's all about money. Who can rely on love to eat their fill? We're already so old, so don't we have more experience to help them make the right choice? It's better for us parents to make the decision regarding their marriage. I'll talk to you later. I'll go back and cook for my husband first. As soon as Julien turned around, the smile on her face immediately disappeared. If the Yu family found out that Yu Bing was the factory director, wouldn't the betrothal gift cost an astronomical price? She had to think of another way. At night, Julien pulled her husband to the Yu family's house after dinner. There was a rhythmic knock on the door. At this moment, the Yu family had just finished eating and Yu Pan was clearing the dishes. Yu Pan opened the door. Duan Mei was already knitting on the sofa. Yu Pan looked at Yu Wu, who was sitting on the sofa, and said unhappily, "I'm cleaning up the dishes." "Let Yu Wu go." Duan Mei sat up straight and glared at Yu Pan. "Your brother is already sitting down. You're standing. Open the door immediately and stop talking nonsense." Yu Pan threw the cloth on the table away and stomped her feet as she opened the door indignantly. "Auntie Sure, Uncle Yao." Seeing this, Julien smiled and teased, "What's with your unhappy expression? Did your mother make you angry?" Duan Mei replied angrily, "She's angry just because we asked her to do something. That wretched girl has been spoiled by me and her father." Yu Wu stood up and greeted them before walking into the room. He didn't want to listen to these elders chat. Mr. Yu hurriedly invited Julien and Mr. Yao to sit down and poured 2 cups of tea. Mr. Yao smiled and said, "I haven't been to your house for a long time, so I came to chat." Mr. Yu also smiled and replied, "You're welcome anytime. Shall we play chess?" Mr. Yao was interested. "Let's have a round." The men took the chessboard to the table at the side. They all knew what the 2 women wanted to talk about. It would probably take a lot of time. They didn't want to participate. It was better not to get involved in a conflict between women. It was too stressful. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 155, Disclosure. Julien didn't want to appear too anxious lest she was at a disadvantage. The 2 of them chatted about other things for a long time before Julien got to the point. Since Duan Mei suspected her, she would release the news of the tractor driver. This would let Duan Mei know that she indeed had an advantage, but that this advantage wasn't enough to make them raise the betrothal amount. Julien said nonchalantly, "Duan Mei, Yu Bing is lucky. She became a tractor driver not long after arriving in the countryside. Although driving is difficult, it's better than farming. Moreover, she's the only driver in the village. I heard from Yan Yin that the village chief values her very much." Julien's voice wasn't loud, but the Yu family's house wasn't big either. This was explosive news to the Yu family. Mr. Yu stopped playing chess. Yu Pan immediately turned off the tap and ran out of the living room. She asked in shock, "Auntie Sure, you said that my sister became a tractor driver?" Julien was stunned for a moment. "You guys don't know?" Then, she covered her mouth, as if she had said something wrong. When Duan Mei came back to her senses, she resisted the urge to curse. She looked helpless as she said, "Looks like this girl is blaming me and her father. Previously, she agreed to go to the countryside to support us. She probably felt that it was too arduous and regretted it after she went there. But since she's already gone, we don't have the ability to find connections to get her to come back." Duan Mei didn't want Julien to laugh at her, so she could only push the blame on Yu Bing. Julien didn't expose Duan Mei's words. If not for the poor relationship between them, how could Yu Bing not tell her family about such a big matter as transferring jobs? However, now that her son was going to marry her daughter, she had to coax Duan Mei. "Hence," she said sympathetically, "children are debtors from our previous lives. Isn't Yan Yin the same? Since he went to the countryside, I haven't been eating or sleeping well. I'm worried that he'll suffer in the village." Then, she put on a sincere expression and sighed. "I won't hide it from you anymore. I want them to get married mainly because Yu Bing is now in an important position in the countryside. I was just thinking that if they get married, Yu Bing will have a chance to help Yan Yin." Only then were Duan Mei's doubts dispelled. She knew that Julien would never do things without purpose. How could she fancy a sickly person like her daughter? Although she didn't know about Yu Bing's transfer, at least Julien had to humble herself for the marriage. Thinking of this, Duan Mei felt a little better. Duan Mei looked at Julien and said slowly, "Yu Bing has just gotten the job. There's no hurry. We can talk about this in 2 years when the 2 children are older. The 2 of them are still children." Of course, this wasn't the real reason. Duan Mei suddenly remembered that tractor drivers were paid. It wasn't easy for her to raise Yu Bing. If Yu Bing didn't pay her a few years of salary, wouldn't she have raised her for nothing? This wouldn't do. How could Julien not know what Duan Mei was thinking? This was how she treated her daughter, Yao Ling. Daughters were useless. If she didn't take advantage of the time when her daughter was still in her maiden family, when she was married off, even if she wanted to subsidize her maiden family, there would be a limit. However, things were different now. Shirlian couldn't let the Yu family drag on like this. After all, Yan Yin couldn't afford to wait. He had to change his job from farming to factory management quickly. Shirlian didn't look anxious at all. Instead, she smiled calmly and said to Duan Mei, "Those young people nowadays advocate free love. Aren't you afraid that Yu Bing will take a fancy to a poor boy in the village and marry him? Her household register is already in the village and is no longer in your family. She's far away, so you won't be able to do anything about it." Only then did Duan Mei think of this problem. Yu Bing had a household register now, so she could get a marriage certificate without her family's permission. If she was really coaxed to stay in the village and find a poor person to marry, so poor that he couldn't even afford a betrothal gift, she would have raised Yu Bing for nothing. Shirlian saw the sudden change in Duan Mei's expression and continued to add fuel to the fire. "Although our family's conditions are indeed average, we won't scrimp on betrothal money. Actually, driver tow trucks don't earn much money a month. I heard that it was only about 10 yuan. Our family isn't greedy for this money. We just hope that Yu Bing can help Yan Yin get an easy job like being a scorekeeper." Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 156, Going to the Village. Shirlian had already thought about it thoroughly. In order for her son not to suffer, if it really didn't work out, she would give Yu Bing's family the average price of the betrothal money in the city. As long as they got married and Yan Yin controlled the money in the family, Yu Bing, the factory manager, would earn back the betrothal money she had given her family. This business wasn't a loss. When Duan Mei heard this, she was sincerely moved. Moreover, the betrothal money in the countryside was very little. If Yu Bing married Yan Yin, she could ask for 200 to 300 yuan according to the city standards, and it would be settled in one go. Yu Bing's salary was paid monthly, so she had to be given 2 years' worth of money before she could get the same amount as the betrothal money. If this wretched girl got married in the countryside before this, she might not be able to get enough. Therefore, it was more important to get the money. Hence, Duan Mei smiled at Shirlian. It doesn't matter if there's a betrothal gift or not, as long as the young couple is happy. My husband and I will think about it carefully before replying to your family. Duan Mei basically agreed. However, as a woman, even if she agreed, she had to be more reserved. What she meant was that the man's family took the initiative to beg her daughter to marry him, and not the other way around. At this point, Shirlian was no longer so anxious. She also had a daughter, so she naturally knew this unwritten rule. All right, men are afraid of entering the wrong line of work, and women are afraid of marrying the wrong man. It's only right for you to consider it for 2 more days. The two families exchanged pleasantries before the Yao family left. As soon as the guest left, Duan Mei's expression instantly turned ugly. As she stood in the living room, she started to scold, "Yu Bing, that wretched girl. I raised her for 18 years. It wasn't easy for her to get a salary, but she didn't even send it back. We had to find out from Shirlian. Now, Shirlian is probably secretly laughing at our family. This little bitch. When she comes back to get married, I'll tear her mouth apart." Yu Pan and Mr. Yu were already used to Duan Mei scolding Yu Bing, so they didn't feel that she should not use such vulgar words on her daughter. At this moment, Yu Pan vaguely felt that she had missed out on some important information. Suddenly, she narrowed her eyes as she said, "Mom, don't you think there's something wrong with this?" Duan Mei was in the midst of scolding when she was suddenly interrupted. She was a little unhappy and replied impatiently, "What's wrong? Didn't Shirlian confess? She wants Yan Yin to get an easy job through Yu Bing." Yu Pan slapped her thigh. "It's precisely this that is suspicious. Think about it. If she wants Yu Bing to help Yan Yin transfer jobs, she can just pay Yu Bing or ask Yan Yin to find a village official. The money spent on bribing definitely won't be more expensive than the betrothal money, right? I don't believe that with so many people, she can't use any connections with this money. Yan Yin is her lifeline. Anyway, I don't believe that Auntie Shir wants to use Yan Yin's marriage in exchange for the job of a scorekeeper. In her eyes, even a fairy is out of Yan Yin's league." When Duan Mei heard this, she slowly sat down. She thought for a moment and said, "But Yu Bing's job has a salary. She earns more than 100 yuan a year. Yan Yin might not even be able to earn even 100 yuan a year in the countryside. If Yan Yin was in the city, Shirlian would definitely be picky about her daughter-in-law. However, Yan Yin is in the countryside. What choice does he have? It's not bad to marry someone like Yu Bing." Yu Pan shook her head in disagreement and continued to analyze. "Anyway, I think it definitely isn't that simple. It's not like we're transferring Yan Yin back. If he's transferred to the county or the commune, I think Auntie Shir might want Yu Bing to be her daughter-in-law. But now, it's just so Yan Yin can be transferred to another position. Mom, do you think this is like the anti-shoe you know? When Duan Mei heard Yu Pan's words, she couldn't help but waver. She couldn't make up her mind, so she turned to look at Mr. Yu. What do you think? To Mr. Yu, he didn't care about anything else as long as he could eat his fill and wear warm clothes every day. He couldn't be bothered with these complicated matters. Hence, he took out today's newspaper from the side and said nonchalantly, if you're really worried, go to Yu Bing and you'll understand everything. When Yu Pan saw that Mr. Yu was on her side, she immediately echoed, my father is right. The round-trip ticket doesn't cost more than 10 yuan. Mom, why don't you go? At the same time, see if Yu Bing is hiding anything from us. Perhaps you'll find out the real reason Anti-Shirt came to propose marriage. Visit and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 157, Going to the Village. Duan Mei was convinced by her words and she sneered. All right, I'll go. If there's really something else going on, it can only mean that the Yao family can benefit more from it. Shirlian can forget about brushing me off with a betrothal gift. Shirlian would never have expected that her almost succeeded plan would be ruined by Yu Pan's occasionally lucid mind. When Mr. Yu heard this, he looked up and said, food is easier to get in the villages than here. Get Yu Bing to buy more for you. Duan Mei said matter-of-factly, that's for sure. I'll get all her salary back this time. Our family is in such a difficult situation, so she definitely has to help. When Yu Pan heard that her mother was preparing to get Yu Bing's salary, she excitedly thought about how she would get a few yuan from her mother. This way, with the money she had saved up, she could buy the dress she liked. Therefore, the next day, the reply Shirlian received was that Duan Mei decided to go to the countryside to ask Yu Bing's opinion in person, in case Yu Bing didn't agree to be with Yan Yan. Shirlian had no choice but to ask for leave to visit Yan Yan. The matter of Yu Bing being the factory director would definitely be exposed, so she could only try to think of a solution according to the situation. The two of them made up their minds and applied for leave from the factory in 3 days. At this moment, Yu Bing was completely unaware and was still focused on production. Because the bamboo gift boxes cost more than 16,000 yuan, the villagers started weaving at home as soon as they got off work. As long as they passed the inspection, they would get 0.02 yuan. The materials could be obtained for free in the village's bamboo forest. They could weave one in 10 minutes. With these income-generating projects, the villagers, who liked to gossip and sow discord all day long, turned their attention to earning money. The entire He Mountain Brigade was immersed in the harmonious atmosphere of doing business. As for the ordinary version, the mobility team was in charge of them. Because the craftsmanship was very simple, it only took a minute to weave a rope. Yu Bing wanted to save as much as possible. If the mobile team could handle it, they would do it themselves. In the future, if the quantity was large, they would hire 1 or 2 more people to be in charge. The goods from the farm had to be shipped first. There were a total of 369 bottles of ordinary goods. Yu Bing personally drove them there. Although they owed the farm money, that was another matter. Yu Bing insisted on paying the remaining 295.2 yuan. After all, they had agreed in advance when they placed the order. At this moment, before Yu Bing received the letter from the Yu family, Duan Mei and Shirlian had already arrived at the county city and were on their way to the commune. The two of them were carsick from being on the road for an entire day and night. When they finally arrived at the commune, they found out that the ox cart in the village only came to town on market day. They had no choice but to drag their tired bodies to the village. Shirlian and Duan Mei weren't young anymore. There were buses for long trips in the city, so they rarely walked so much, especially on uneven yellow soil. Duan Mei had even sprained her ankle. Shirlian brought a bag of dried meat and chili sauce. The two of them supported each other for 3 to 4 hours. When they arrived at the village entrance, they happened to meet the villagers preparing to go to work in the afternoon. Everyone knew that the two of them were from the city from their clothes, so a friendly villager walked up and asked, "Hello, are you here to visit your relatives?" When Yu Yan, who was passing by, saw a stranger coming into the village, she took a few more glances. She saw 2 middle-aged women. One of them had short hair and looked smart and capable, while the other had her hair tied back. Both of them looked tired. Yu Yan felt that the long-haired, round-faced woman gave her a sense of intimacy, so she stopped and took another look. Yu Yan looked like Duan Mei. The two of them had round faces and almond-shaped eyes. They looked 50% alike. Perhaps because of the sense of kinship, Yu Yan developed a good impression of Duan Mei. When Shirlian heard the question, she hurriedly replied, "Hello, I'm Yan Yan's mother. This is Yu Bing's mother. We're here to see the children." When everyone heard Yu Bing's name, they stopped and said enthusiastically, "Yan Yan is with the intellectuals. She should be starting work soon." Miss Yu went to collect the payment early in the morning. It's been hard on her. I wonder if she's back now? Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 158, Tearing You Being Apart. No, I met Jiang Chun just now and specifically asked. She said that there's an assignment and it needs a car to be done. Miss Yu still has to go to the DMV after delivering the goods. Miss Yu is really capable. You can't judge a book by its cover. You can't tell how capable she is from her gentle and meek appearance. She's not like us, who only have the strength to boast. Miss Yu is smart. That's why I think studying is useful. Unfortunately, we only attended literacy classes. We're not as lucky as children these days, who are able to attend elementary school, middle school, and high school. Everyone discussed it, and it wasn't difficult to tell that the villagers admired Yu Bing. When Duan Mei heard everyone's evaluation of Yu Bing, she was secretly shocked. If she hadn't heard wrongly, everyone seemed to be calling Yu Bing the factory director. She smiled and asked, Yu Bing is the factory manager? That's right. You still don't know? Fair enough. Miss Yu is a low-key person. The factory officially opened this month. She probably hasn't had the time to tell you, a young wife from the village replied enthusiastically. Shirlian's heart skipped a beat. She was worried that Duan Mei would think that she had deliberately hidden the fact that Yu Bing was the factory director. However, Duan Mei was still in shock about Yu Bing being the factory director. How could she have thought of this? At this moment, Yan Yin, who had come to work, also saw his mother and Duan Mei at the entrance of the village. He immediately smiled and ran forward. Mom, Auntie Duan, why are you here? You should have sent a letter in advance so that I could pick you up. Shirlian looked at Yan Yin, who had become thinner, and her heart ached so much that she cried. Son, why have you become so thin? Yan Yin felt a little sad when he heard this. Ever since he started work, his handsome face had become quite rugged-looking. Yan Yin looked at his mother and suddenly felt aggrieved. His sister was originally the one who would come to the countryside. He had sacrificed so much for her to marry someone wealthy, but she actually broke up with such a wealthy boyfriend at the drop of a hat. He had lost a powerful brother-in-law and the chance to return to the city. Now, he could only stay in the village. However, they were in public after all. Yan Yin held back the tears in his eyes. Now that he had found a way out through Yu Bing, he definitely wouldn't end up that miserable. Hence, he smiled and said, that's how farm work is. Mom, Auntie Duan, I'll bring you to our dormitory building first. I'll find the team leader to arrange a place for you two to stay tonight. The two of them followed Yan Yin towards the dormitory building. Yu Yin stared at Duan Mei's back with yearning. Thinking about how Duan Mei hadn't noticed her just now, she felt a little disappointed. However, on second thought, her mother looked exhausted just now, so it was normal for her not to notice her. Hence, she followed the group into the field with a heavy heart. After the new year, an intellectual got married and moved out of the dormitory, so the house happened to be empty. Yan Yin found a team leader and arranged for his mother and Duan Mei to enter the dormitory. Duan Mei was still thinking about Yu Bing becoming the factory director. She didn't know how much Yu Bing had hidden from her, so she was anxious to see Yu Bing so that she could scold her. Yan Yin, which room is Yu Bing staying in? I want to go to her room to wait for her. Yan Yin told Duan Mei about Yu Bing and Jiang Chun living alone. When Duan Mei heard that she had to walk to the end of the village, she immediately decided to sleep for a while first. In any case, Yu Bing couldn't escape anyway. After Yan Yin settled her down, he went to work. Shirlian's heart ached so much that she cried again. Duan Mei wasn't that sentimental about Yu Bing. She wanted to tear Yu Bing apart now, so she had to rest well and conserve her strength before settling the score with Yu Bing at night. Yu Bing only returned home at 7 in the evening. Jiang Chun urged Yu Bing to wash her face first. Then, she entered the kitchen and hurriedly brought the food on the stove to the table. What assignment were you on this time? Yu Bing was extremely hungry. When she saw the food, her eyes lit up. I brought a batch of goods from the county's sugar factory to the city's supply and marketing club. I have to go tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, twice a day. Jiang Chun asked again, doesn't that mean you have to come home this late every day? What time do you leave every day? Yu Bing took a few sips of the warm soup and felt much better. We have to leave at 7 in the morning. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 159, Giving Back to the Family. Jiang Chun said with heartache, every time there's an assignment, you start work earlier than us and get off work later than us. Your long working hours offset the low-intensity advantage of this job. Yu Bing smiled and patted Jiang Chun's shoulder. No matter what, it's better than farming. There's a salary. After chatting for a while, Jiang Chun remembered something important. By the way, your mother and Auntie Shi came together. Yu Bing choked, scaring Jiang Chun so much that she hurriedly patted Yu Bing's back. Yu Bing confirmed with Jiang Chun, my mother and Yan Yan's mother? Jiang Chun nodded seriously. Yu Bing was a little puzzled. She didn't reply to the previous letter, so hadn't they not contacted each other for a long time? Why did her mother come so suddenly, and with Yan Yan's mother? At the same time, Yu Bing also realized that her identity was about to be exposed. Thinking of her mother's methods, Yu Bing sneered. In any case, she wouldn't let her mother succeed. Yu Bing was halfway through her meal when Duan Mei and Shirlian came over under Yan Yan's lead. The courtyard door was open. The three of them saw the dim yellow light in the kitchen and walked in. When Duan Mei saw the small bowl of hibiscus eggs and 2 vegetables on the table, she felt a little dissatisfied. Mr. Yu and Yu Wu were given priority to the eggs at home. She and Yu Pan could only eat them 2 to 3 times a week. Yu Bing could actually afford to eat them now. It seemed that this girl had really saved up some money. Jiang Chun was facing the kitchen door. When she saw them, she greeted them first. When Yu Bing heard this, she could only put down her bowl and chopsticks and stand up to call out, Mom, Auntie Shi. Yu Bing, my mother and Auntie Duan are here to discuss our marriage, Yan Yan said excitedly. Marriage? Yu Bing frowned. She wondered when Yan Yan had arranged this. Shirlian also smiled and said, you guys are already at the legal age of marriage. It's time to fulfill the arranged marriage. The mother and son wished they could immediately settle this matter so that they could publicize it. This way, they could force the Yu family to agree to this matter for the sake of their reputation. However, Duan Mei also reacted now. If Yu Bing was just a driver, she definitely would have agreed directly. However, the situation was clearly different now. Duan Mei didn't believe that Shirlian didn't know that Yu Bing was the factory director before, but she didn't want to expose her. Now that she had the upper hand, she had to think about how to use Yu Bing to maximize the benefits for the Yu family. Hence, Duan Mei also smiled and said, we just arrived. There's no hurry to discuss this matter. I'll talk to Yu Bing about it first. As I said, the two of them have to be willing to spend the rest of their lives together. When Shirlian heard this, she gritted her teeth in hatred, but she still didn't show it on her face. At this point, she could only see what the two of them could come up with first and think of a way to deal with it. Fair enough. You probably miss your daughter too after she left home for more than half a year. You two can chat first. Yan Yan and I will wait for you two outside. Jiang Chun turned around and looked at Yu Bing worriedly before following her out. After everyone left, Yu Bing continued to sit down and eat. Only then did Duan Mei have the time to size up Yu Bing. Yu Bing had grown taller and her figure was no longer like that of a primary school student. Even her breasts had started to develop a little. She knew that Yu Bing was lying when she was complaining about struggling to make ends meet in the letter. Duan Mei felt that Yu Bing was challenging her authority as a mother. Duan Mei was furious. Seeing that Yu Bing ignored her, she frowned and scolded, is this your reaction when you see me? Yu Bing looked up tiredly. Mom, I only ate 2 buns in the afternoon because I was in a hurry. Driving is very exhausting. I just arrived home to eat. Can you wait for me to finish eating before talking? Duan Mei snorted. You still have the cheek to eat? Yu Bing, I think you're getting bolder and bolder after leaving home. Do you think I can't control you because you're here? Let me tell you, I gave birth to you, so you have to be controlled by me for the rest of your life. Yu Bing ate calmly as she looked up to ask, then what do you want to control now? Duan Mei limped to the small stool beside Yu Bing and said matter-of-factly, take out your salary for the past few months. Do you know how poor our family is now? We can barely eat. Yet you can even eat eggs. After we raised you for so long, you have to think of a way to repay the family now that you're capable of earning money. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. Chapter 160, Change. Although she no longer had any hope for family, Yu Bing still felt bad when she heard that her mother was treating her like a fool. Mom, you and Dad earn 36 yuan a month. My sister leaves 20 yuan for you and keeps 2 yuan herself, but she can eat and live at home. In other words, there are 4 people in the family, and 3 of them have a salary. You guys earn a total of 92 yuan a month. Mom, even if you eat meat a few times a month, you can save up a third of your money, right? I don't think our family is so poor that we can't even afford to eat. Duan Mei's expression changed when she heard this. She was able to save money because of her own capabilities. You heartless person. You said so much because you don't want to give the money to the family, right? Yu Bing, let me tell you, I have many tricks up my sleeve. Don't force me to use them on you. Yu Bing wasn't someone who could be threatened. Mom, I believe you've already found out about my salary. It's 12 yuan a month. Although there's rice and oil distributed for free, I have to spend my own money to buy everything else. You know my ill health. The job of a tow truck driver isn't much easier than farming. If I don't eat anything to nourish my body, I'll have to spend money to see a doctor if my body can't take it anymore. Mom, I don't have to calculate this. You should know that it's better to use this money to buy medicine, right? When Duan Mei heard this, she calculated inside. In the past, when Yu Bing was at home, she had to see a doctor every 2 to 3 days. In total, the average monthly medical fee was 2 to 3 yuan. However, because it was a small medical room in the factory's infirmary, it didn't cost money. There was a monthly nutritional allowance of 5 yuan for the sick family members of the employees. She used this money to buy nutritional supplements for Yu Wu. Otherwise, how could Yu Wu have grown so tall? She had fed him all kinds of nutritional supplements since he was young. Thinking of this, Duan Mei was a little smug about her meticulous planning. She thought about what Yu Bing had said carefully and decided to leave the medical fees as nutritional fees for Yu Bing and give her some extra emergency money. After all, only when Yu Bing recovered could she continuously get more money from her. You make sense. Leave 5 yuan for the driver's salary and send the remaining 8 yuan and the factory director's salary back. Seeing how benevolent Duan Mei was to her, Yu Bing couldn't help but scoff. Mom, I have many places to spend money on, so I won't send the money. But don't worry, when you and Dad get old and need your children to support you guys, I'll definitely give you the same amount my brother and sister gives you. When Duan Mei heard this, she slammed the table in anger. You heartless person. I should have strangled you to death when you were born. I raised you, but you don't have any gratitude at all. Without me, you would have grown up on the streets. The more agitated Duan Mei became, the calmer Yu Bing felt. Mom, the 5 yuan subsidy given by the factory is for me, right? It's a fact that medical treatment doesn't cost money, right? I've been working for the family since I was 5 years old. I've been cooking 3 meals a day since I was 8 years old. I eat meat twice a month, but I'm only allowed to eat 1 piece each time. Although this is a new society and there are no more servants, I've always felt that this word can more accurately explain my status in the Yu family. After all, based on the treatment I'm receiving, no one would think that I'm the Yu family's daughter. Then treat me as the family's helper. My salary should be enough to afford those meals. After all, the amount I eat at home has been strictly calculated by you. I can only eat until I'm half full. Yu Bing came to a conclusion with a hint of mockery. So you've already earned the subsidy money from the time I was born to the time I graduated from high school. In that case, I supported myself and even earned some money for my family. Duan Mei looked at Yu Bing, who seemed completely different, and was a little surprised. Could a person change so much? Duan Mei secretly sized up Yu Bing. If not for the fact that Yu Bing's face was identical, she would have suspected that Yu Bing had been switched. Yu Bing sensed Duan Mei's suspicious gaze and ignored her. After finishing the last 2 mouthfuls of food, she began to clear the dishes. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much.